So I don't know about you, but here lately we hear a lot about this in the media. We hear a lot about the narrative or the plan or the agenda that one side has, what one party has, the Democratic side or the Republican side. We hear about the narrative. Well, what do they mean by that? What are they trying to do? What is their plan of action? What are they wanting to achieve by doing or saying these things? So the question should come back to us as to, well, what principles and what foundations are they using to justify these changes or to justify these new laws, new rules, new regulations? What are they using as their guidance? And so I would assume all nations, all countries have some kind of constitution that they abide by, that they use to direct their steps. I mean, that's obviously a good thing. The National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China, there's a part in it that says this: the Constitution in legal form affirms the achievements of the struggles of the Chinese people of all nationalities and defines the basic system and basic task of the state. It is the fundamental law of the state and the supreme legal authority. The people of all nationalities, all state organs, the armed forces, all political parties and public organizations, and all enterprises and institutions in the country must take the Constitution as the basic standard of conduct. And they have the duty to uphold the dignity of the Constitution to ensure its implementation. Okay? That's just one part of it, one segment of it. But again, that last part, is the icing on the cake. That the people living there have the duty to uphold the dignity of the Constitution to ensure its implementation, to ensure that what we used as a foundation then is what we're using now. How our country was founded and what built it up to what it is, that's what we're using now to carry on the mission. So Iran has something similar, the Islamic Parliament of Iran, and there's a part in it that says this: in the view of Islam, government does not derive from the interest of a class, nor does it cater to the domination of an individual or group. I thought that was pretty interesting. It represents rather the crystallization of the political ideal of the people sharing a common faith and outlook, organized in order to pave the way in the process of its intellectual and ideological development for movement towards the ultimate goal, the movement towards God. So again, they're just saying, well, we're not going to cater to some particular person or group for starters, but we're going to have a bigger mission, and that's pursuing God or a higher power, and that's going to be what our movement, what our development is based on. So why do I say those things? Well, obviously we have a constitution here in the United States, and it begs the question of, well, why does it seem like all around us people are trying to change our founding principles and foundation? What are our founding fathers, what they declared to be good, which I agree with. Why would we seem like a generation or a culture that is so eager to change some of the most basic and crucial principles that we have? I don't understand it. My wife and I, we had been, I'm not saying it's gone completely, we had been pursuing overseas missions for a few years now. And, here recently, I feel as if God has put a different goal in our mind right now. And that's to be witnesses here in our nation first. And I strongly believe that overseas missions will come at a later time. But we wouldn't be going over to another country to change their constitution, to change who they are as a country. We would be going over there and, to the best of our ability, abiding by their laws and their rules, as long as it doesn't go against my God and his holy word. That's what we would do, because we went over there to them. They didn't ask us to come over there. They didn't make us come over there. So there's no reason to try and change who they are as a country. Obviously, I'm strongly believing that we're going over there for a purpose, to help individuals, and who knows, God might bring a change about within that country, but it wouldn't be something that I believe I spurred on. It would be something that God spurred on, and God changed through the people. But again, we have people who live in our country and even who come to our country who are so eager to change who we are, and I'm not sure why. So what does some of our documents say? Well, because until recently, I haven't really read much of any of them, at least not in length, because it's just not something I have laying around. I bought a small copy of it the other day, and it has some interesting points. So there's a part in our Declaration of Independence that says this: the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and natures of God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that last part we've heard, I'm sure, numerous times. But it's interesting, at least from a spiritual perspective, that God is mentioned twice in the first two sentences of our Declaration of Independence. Talking about the laws of nature and the natures of God, and then talking about him as our Creator. And we don't see that much anymore, hear that much anymore. And in fact, people are doing their best to remove God from government facilities and agencies and operations like public schools and off of our currency and things of that nature. Again, that's probably my biggest one. My biggest problem is that our founding fathers founded our nation what appears to be on a biblical basis, on a God structured foundation, and we want to remove him. I don't get it. Part of our Constitution says this: we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now, obviously, whenever we get into anything, any discussion, any debate, if there's more than one person involved, then we can all probably get a slightly differing opinion about something. So, for instance, when it says to promote the general welfare, well, what does that mean? So, we've have the definition of welfare floating around in our nation as free money for people who qualify. That's what we see that as. We see it as some people might see it as a blessing. Some people might see it as a handout. Some people might see it as a crutch. So whenever I look at welfare, I am one of those that think majority of it is a crutch. It's something that is not beneficial for majority of the people. I would say 95% of the people who receive welfare, it should not be. Yeah, it's a crutch. It is hindering them from doing something better and doing something more meaningful with their life. And I think we see that now, as we've talked about before, in our economy and in our financial stability, whether as a nation or whether as individuals. We are struggling economically because we are receiving handouts from the government, and therefore we don't need people to do anything to operate our nation. That's a problem. That's a problem. And whenever they write promote the general welfare, I'm pretty sure they didn't have the idea of welfare in mind that we have turned it into now. And then there's another section in the Constitution that reads this, talking about the president and when he's sworn in. Before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. And it says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So when I read that, do I think that rings true with who we have in office now? Do I think that says, yes, Joe Biden is doing these things? Maybe it is to the best of his ability. If you keep up with him at all, and I don't want to be or sound disrespectful of our president, he's not in fit shape, I don't believe, to run our nation. And that should be terrifying a little bit, because we the people, this is up for debate, we the people elected him to run our nation, but it might appear as if other people are running the nation. That's not right. We didn't elect other people, we elected him. And it appears as if sometimes he's not going full throttle. And that's a problem. So the best of his ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And again, that's up for debate, especially with what we've seen in this past year with the pandemic and the mandates and the uprooting of our society. Where is the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in all that? I don't know. I don't know. So there's this American Presidency Project, and it has different statistics on there talking about the presidents and their executive orders and how many they passed. And there's some interesting stuff on there. So, man, I don't know much about history, and I need to learn more. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't know much about politics either. Again, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to learn more stuff. But FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, he passed a lot of executive orders. He was in office for 12.12 years. And in that time, he passed 3,721 executive orders. And that averages to 307 a year. Wow. I mean, talk about busy. I mean, again, I'm not sure. I'd have to do research to find out what he passed, why he passed it. Maybe it was good, maybe it was bad. But whenever I see a number like that, my first inclination is to think that man was power hungry. Again, maybe he passed great things. I'm not sure. But there couldn't have been 3,721 things that were wrong with the nation before he stepped into power. That's a lot of things to do or to change. It's mind-boggling, actually. And so Joe Biden did a hefty amount of executive orders in his first 100 days as well. This is, kind of dated, back in January when he first stepped in. He was not slow at all to get the ball rolling. If I were stepping into a new position like that, especially like that, I think I would need a week to just breathe and to try and grasp what's going on around me. And granted, Joe's been in political office of some sort for many decades now. But to just step in and do what he's done. I mean, so far he's passed 50 executive orders. and that averages to 138 a year. Obviously, that number will most likely drop his average per year as time moves on. But again, that's crazy. 50 things that Joe Biden thought that he needed to do. And we'll look at a few of those in just a minute. But it is interesting to see what our last 4 presidents have done. So Biden, Trump, Obama, and Bush, and they've all differed in time in office. But the executive orders that were passed, I mean, Biden holds the number 1 slot with 42 at the time of this. Trump only had 33, Obama 19, and Bush had 11. That's crazy. And Bush and Obama had office for 8 years, and Trump had it for 4 years. But a bigger concern, I think, is the other one, is the count of executive orders that revoke prior orders. So whenever I think about, and I don't want to define myself, I'm not using the term progression in the sense that of what it is now in our culture, because I believe that's bad. But as we progress, as we develop as a nation, I would hope that we're getting better and better and closer to the goal, whatever that might be. But when we look at the orders that were revoked, the prior orders that were revoked, again, it makes me wonder why. So Bush revoked 5, Obama 7, Trump 8, and you got to think that Obama came after a Republican, Bush. So, one could say, yeah, there'd probably be more. Trump came after Obama, so again, changing parties. So again, it could be more, but it's not. And then Biden, I mean, he's already revoked 21. 21. So that's 3 times as much as Obama, and Biden just got started. Why does he feel the need to change so much stuff and so quickly? So what has he changed? What has he done? Is it for the good of the country? Is it for the bad of the country? I think there's probably a mixture of both, and that might be up for debate. But again, I want us to see what our founding principles are. I want us to cling to those and not try to completely leave in the dust what our country was founded on. I mean, he did things like rejoining the Paris Agreement on climate change, which again I think is a waste of money, a waste of energy. I don't believe climate change is one of the things that we need to chase. I feel like sure, if we can take avenues to reduce pollution of some sort, sure, I'm not against that. But at the same time, spending millions and billions of dollars to do that is crazy, especially whenever we put that in priority slot number 1, and we leave other stuff that are way more important in the dust. Executive order to promote racial equity. Again, the more we harp on, and I'm not calling it a problem, but the more we harp on alleged problems, the more light and attention it's going to get, and that's not good. That's not good. There's no problem there, and the data backs it up. I'm not sure why we keep pushing that. Again, I don't think that is fitting within our foundational principles. Ending bans for some countries. The executive order requiring mask wearing on federal property, which I believe he didn't follow at some points whenever he was on federal property, which is ironic. Coordinating a government-wide COVID-19 response. Let's see. Executive order incorporating undocumented immigrants into census. Why? Why would we do such a silly thing? Again, we are probably the most generous nation when it comes to allowing people in with so little guidelines and so little restrictions. We just say, we open the doors and we basically greet them when they walk in. And we want to give them so many privileges for doing that. And even the ones that come over illegally, we want to give them privileges. Free money. New York did that. Free money to get started. Free healthcare, free food benefits, free housing and shelter. Why? We want to give them the power to vote on our leadership. Why? They aren't a part of our nation. I don't want to come off as unloving and uncompassionate. I want to help those who need help. No doubt about that. No doubt. But I also want us to use our head, and I want us to take care of our nation, and then we expand out from there, because our nation is far from perfect. It's far from it. We struggle so much. And the problem is, and it's similar to what it is in the Bible, whenever we look at the Old Testament, God was hard on the Israelites in the sense of not intermarrying with other nations, with other countries, to not wanting to mingle like that, because he knew what the consequences would be. He knew the consequences would be that they're going to bring in their religions, they're going to bring in their idols and their gods, and it's going to harm you. It's going to hurt you. Maybe we don't hear about that too much nowadays because it looks different. But I have no doubt that us letting people in like a floodgate opening up, that's not necessarily good for us. And sure, maybe it's not coming from our southern border from Mexico. Maybe it's coming from the Middle East and China. I don't know, but nevertheless, I feel like we need to stop, breathe, take care of a few things inside our nation, and then we can open up again, so to speak. I totally see why people want to come over here. I've never really been anywhere else, but based on what I hear, we are the greatest nation in the world. And you can see why they'd want to come over here, for the free stuff they'll receive. Again, it's like welfare. If we sever that line and we cut off funding, we won't be as inviting anymore. Let's see, the executive order refocusing on the climate crisis and canceling the Keystone pipeline. Executive order banning discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. This is the hot topic. This is the big one. Again, it goes back to the foundation of God. The foundation of God and His law. And even the law of nature, just as our Declaration of Independence said. God said it, and if you're reading the right science says it. There's male and there's female. Period. If there's anything else up for debate, I would call it a mental problem with that person. I don't mean to sound hard. I don't mean to sound disrespectful. But there's male and there's female. You look between your legs and you can tell. And again, if we're going to focus on this, if we're going to bring so much attention to this from the man in power, the highest man in power, then it makes it a big deal. It makes it a big deal. If we continue to permit and to allow sinful actions to be spreading among us, then it's never going to go away. It's never going to go away. No, we don't look at it that way. We look at it as, what does society want? What do they say is good or bad? But if we make the stand for making it harder to do things that are wrong, or just socially saying that they're not right, people will reassess themselves. And and think about, well, maybe I ought to think about that. Proclamation pulling funds from border wall. Again, Biden is huge on immigration, and it's sad that we see this push for immigration from the Democratic side, and then we also at the same time see voting laws and restrictions to be lifted and to be changed and altered. And you don't have to be intelligent to think about that for a minute and to put two and two together. Why is that? And why is it coming from the same party? And what is the goal? Executive order pausing federal student loan payments. I'm not saying that was not bad, so to speak, since we obviously were in a pandemic and things were rough. However, and I applaud Biden because I'm pretty sure he established that he's not going to forgive student loan debt, which I'm all for. I don't want us to forgive student loan debt. Debt is bad. Debt is bad. Debt is not what you want to be in, from a biblical perspective and from a logical perspective. And if we just forgive people's debts, majority of them will not be grateful, quote, grateful. They will just end up in the same boat they were in. It's whenever we're pushed through hard times that we learn and that we grow and that we think, I don't want to be in that again. So again, pausing it, sure. Forgiving it, no. And that was just day one. So again, what is the principle behind what is done? What was the purpose of Biden doing those? What was the purpose of Trump doing his? What were the purpose of Obama and Bush doing theirs? Obviously, I'd be skeptical of the leadership we have if they don't do anything, if they don't change anything. I would definitely say that if I looked at what I could do, if I had the power to do something, sure, I would probably change some things. But I think it's more of a visual thing. Let's put this into perspective for those around us type of thing. Because if I get into office and the first thing I do is start changing everything, as an onlooker, I'm thinking that number one, you think and you do have way too much power, that you can just jump in there and just do whatever you want to do. Number two, I think it shows little to no respect, for which we can see that from what they've said openly. It shows little to no respect for the former president. Hey, I'm going to go in and change so many things that he's done because, well, I think he's an idiot. Well, that's what you're saying, whether they're saying it or not, which again, he's already said it, paraphrasing. But that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. And so it's not a matter of can I do it, should I do it. It's a matter about how I do it and when I should do it. There's something that Paul writes to us in 1 Corinthians. He says, I have the right to do anything. That's what he's quoting the people, the church he's talking to. That's what they say. And Paul says, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. And oh, how that's so true with our leadership. Oh, how that's so true and should ring true with anyone in a political sense of power. They might say, I have the right to do anything. Well, that's true. But it's not. It doesn't mean it's beneficial. It doesn't mean it's good for anybody. Well, I have the right to do anything. But it doesn't mean it's constructive. It doesn't mean it helps. But then we come back to a sense of morals and again, foundational principles, which is something that Paul talks about in Romans. He says, but whoever has doubts is condemned if they eat, because their eating is not from faith, and everything that does not come from faith is sin. You know, we can change that word eat to fill in the blank. Whoever doubts, whoever questions what they're doing, well, that's wrong. If you question what you're doing and you do it anyways, that's wrong, because they're eating or they're doing or they're whatever their lawmaking is not from faith, and everything that does not come from faith is sin. We won't talk about this like this anyways in our society, but it rings true so much. It rings so true all around us. I want us as a nation to get back to founding principles, to a foundation that is based on God and God alone in His Word. We do that and we build up from there. He uses the analogy of a foundation in the Gospels. Jesus talks about that. Everything else that's on top of a foundation that's not of God is going to fall and crash and burn. But whatever is built on Him, on God's foundation, it essentially will last forever. He is a firm foundation, and that's what we need to get back to as a society. Understanding Him as Creator, understanding Him in His laws, understanding Him and what He desires for us, for a people, for a nation. And if we could do that, I can't imagine what that would do to us and how that would help change us, obviously for the better. So if you guys like what you hear, I would appreciate if you liked the video. If you had any questions or comments, send them my way. I'd be happy to look at them and answer those. If something I've said is wrong or misleading, please let me know. I would love to take back what I said, or to double down and explain a little further of what I meant. So I appreciate you guys tuning in.